Hello and welcome to episode 2 of For Pete's Sake, the ongoing series in which I attempt to discover more about the person who my dad was by going through his record collection one by one. So just to kind of clear up a few things that I didn't cover in the first episode, I didn't really mention that my dad's name was Pete Johnson, which is why For Pete's Sake is such a wonderful title. But joking aside, he was born on the 2nd of November 1957 in Wunwell, which is a part of Barnsley. And he died on the 22nd of November in 2018, which I think I did mention last time. So yeah, just a little bit of context there. He was 61 when he passed. Last week, the album that the random generator picked was Troubadour by Cale. So for a little bit of context, I thought Cale was in the Velvet Underground, and I started planning a whole episode around that, and because my dad loved the Velvet Underground as well. He's not, it turns out. That's John Cale, which I think is a fair mistake to make. Cale was actually, his name is John Cale, but he was renamed JJ to avoid confusion with the guy in the Velvet Underground. He's a totally different guy. So he is like a kind of bluesy guitarist, beloved of Eric Clapton and Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, these kind of guys. And he was a contemporary of them as well. He started off as an engineer, a music engineer. He was one of the first musicians to have a home studio, but that was very unusual. And he got his start writing songs and selling them to other people, and producing albums for others. But eventually he started to release his own stuff, and that led to the album that we're going to be discussing this week, which is Troubadour. So this is JJ Cale's fourth album. It was released in September of 1976, so my dad would have been 19 at the time. I can't comprehend my dad being 19. I just cannot get my head around that. I think I've seen pictures of him around that time, maybe. I don't know what he would have been doing. And this is one of the kind of really frustrating things when someone passes away, that anyone who's lost someone close will relate to, is that I can't just ask him. I can't ring him and be like, what were you doing when you were 19, Dad? Or when did you buy this album, and what did you think of it, and why did you buy it, and all. I can't ask him those things, and in many ways those answers are kind of lost to the ether. There are some people who I could speak to, which I am thinking about doing, but yeah, I don't really know. I know that he worked at Courtingwood Colliery down the pit for a while. Couple of stories that he told me about that. One, my grandma, his mum Annie, initially said, "No son of mine is working down the pit," despite the fact that they came from very humble beginnings in Wunwell. But my dad always said she changed her tune when she found out about the 2 tons of free coal that she would receive as a result of that. And the other one was that one of the jobs my dad had, he must have been very young at this point, so this might have been around this time, but one of the jobs that he had was, he would kind of sit on where underneath the ground and watch the kind of train carriages go by filled with coal. And I guess his job was just to make sure that there was nothing amiss or whatever. But he told me about one time he fell asleep. It was quite warm down there. He fell asleep, well, very warm, red hot. He fell asleep one time and he woke up and something had gone wrong and there was just coal everywhere and people were shouting. They'd all tipped up and they had to shut everything down for half a day or something. So probably wasn't cut out for that kind of life, perhaps. Alternatively, he might have been in Manchester at this time. My dad went to Manchester to train to be a teacher, but didn't complete his training. Didn't talk much about that. One thing I remember him telling me is how he was teaching one time, and this was when all the kids would have individual desks with the kind of lift up desk where you could store stuff inside it. And he told me about these lads at the back that lifted the desks up so my dad couldn't see their faces, and then after a few minutes my dad just saw smoke rising from behind the desks, and they were just smoking behind the desk. That's why they were hiding. So yeah, I don't know where he was at this time in his life. One of those two things. He also went travelling at some point. I think he was quite young then, but I don't know how old he was. I think that might have been a bit later. I'm not sure. But yeah, so I don't know any of those things. And if anyone watching does know, because I know that some people who knew my dad have watched the first episode, then please do enlighten me. I would be fascinated to know. So this is the album, Troubadour by Cale. You can see he's still got the special offer sticker on there. He did love a bargain, or Pete did. £2.49. I'm assuming that is. When did pounds become a thing? Rather than kind of pounds and pence, when did that happen? I don't know. That'd be something to kind of be useful to know. I haven't researched it, but not to worry. And you've also, you might be able to see there, someone has written 33 next to the special offer sticker. That will probably be a reference to the RPM. Records have an RPM, revolutions per minute, which is how fast they should be played on the turntable. Again, I'm not an expert, but I think that's what it means. But I think that's what that 33 will mean. It's a special offer. The RRP, recommended retail price, is not filled in. So maybe my dad's maybe he's had his leg lifted there, I don't know. But what's also interesting about this one is it was pressed in France. I don't think you'll be able to see that, but that there tells you that it was pressed in France, that information there. So does that mean, I'm assuming that doesn't mean that it was bought in France, but it says at the bottom, printed in France as well. And there's something else that I'll point out about that in a moment. So the cover of the album is very simple, isn't it? It's just the head of the guitar. Cale was a noted guitar player, as I said earlier, so it's not surprising that he's gone for that kind of iconography. And you'll also notice that the clouds take the shape of guitars as well in the background. Very wistful from Mr. Cale there. The inner sleeve is very basic. It's just, I think it's a generic one that this record, either company or shop, would have used for all their records. Again, the instructions for how to look after it are all written in French as well. So that's another thing that kind of confirms what I said earlier. And then if you look at the record itself, it's in pretty peak condition. A little bit of smudging, but not as much as what last week's had. And again, what's interesting here is, this is very small, so I doubt you'll be able to see it, but the song title there, Cocaine, which I'll talk more about later, has got an umlaut above the I, the two dots, and that's because that's the French spelling of the word cocaine. However, none of the other song titles are written in French, so it's a weird one, that. You can also see the little half moon, kind of more sliver of a moon with a face in it there. I don't know if that's something that is unique to this record, or if it's something that the record company used as a logo, I'm not sure. Yeah, but so I'd never heard this album before in my life, and I was surprised. I did really enjoy it. The highlights for me, and I don't want to kind of talk too much about the music side of it, because I think that's not what most people are here for. Apologies. But the songs that I really enjoyed, track 2, Travelling Light, is an absolutely fantastic song. The opening guitar lick sounds like something that Daft Punk would sample now, if they were still together. And it's just really funky and kind of dark, and it's got a great bass line. Just love it. A fantastic song. It had the rare privilege of, when I listened to it, I put it back on again. I put it straight on again as soon as it had finished, and listened to it again because I loved it that much. It's really good. The song Cocaine is one of Cale's most famous songs, mainly because it was covered by Eric Clapton, who turned it into a massive hit. I prefer the Cale version. It's dirtier, bluesier. It would be the perfect accompaniment for a poker night, and as someone who's made many a playlist for a poker night, I'm annoyed that I never put it on there. I didn't know about it enough to put it on there. It's a famous riff. You'll have heard it, Cocaine. It's really good, and if you haven't, I would recommend seeking it out. There is also a great song called Super Blue, which sounds, it could be a Tom Waits song. Obviously it doesn't have Waits' inimitable growl, but musically it sounds very much like Tom Waits' early albums, the kind of Nighthawks at the Diner era. It's got the stand-up bass and the kind of drawling, kind of drawn-out melodies. It's really lovely, very good. And I also like the album opener, Hey Baby, which is not as good as those first three that I mentioned, but a nice introduction to kind of Cale's music. Very kind of slow and considered. Much of the album is. Aside from, I think what I'm going to do most weeks is kind of try and pick out 4 songs. The rest of the album, I would say, is pleasant but fairly unremarkable and quite samey. But I think that perhaps is to my ears because I feel like that about many of the kind of 70s singer-songwriters like Clapton and Mark Knopfler and actually not him, but Clapton and Jackson Browne and Tom Petty, those kind of guys. I do find them quite samey. Yeah, so that is my thoughts on the album. Yeah, I don't know where why my dad's got this one. I mean, it's a good album. I suspect this is the kind of thing I reckon where he's heard a song and thought, yeah, I'll buy that, because there's no other JJ Cale in his collection, and I can't remember ever speaking about it. And it doesn't look like it's been played much either. So again, I'd love to ask him. So moving on from that then, and to finish off. Usually, usually I've done one episode, but last week I talked about a record from my collection to kind of juxtapose with my dad's record. I'm not going to do that this time, simply because as I record this, I'm recording this the day after we found out that Ozzy Osbourne had died. So I thought it'd be more fitting to talk a little bit about that. I don't have any Black Sabbath in my record collection. And you know, I'm not a big... I don't know much about Sabbath really, aside from the real big songs like, Iron Man and Paranoid and War Pigs and Changes and all that kind of stuff. But a couple of memories that I wanted to kind of mention from my own life, if you'll indulge me. One is the first gig I ever went to, the first proper gig, was Ozfest in Milton Keynes Bowl 2001 when I was 14. And I went there with my friends Ryan and Luke and Luke's dad, who was a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy, I think. I think he's still alive. And it was Black Sabbath headlining, but as great as they were, and I really remember sitting on a hill and watching them and listening to those songs and thinking about how powerful they were and how amazing they sounded, like ringing out this huge kind of natural kind of space. And it was, yeah, really, really good. But we were there more for kind of Slipknot and bands like Slipknot and Papa Roach and Amen. And that's quite embarrassing, perhaps. Or maybe not. You shouldn't. No such thing as a guilty pleasure. But yeah, I just remember sitting on the hill, and even as a teenager, really kind of feeling the power of those songs. And then the other thing I always associate with Black Sabbath is when I used to DJ. I used to DJ at a pub called the Tut and Shive, and there was a guy who comes in there, a friend of mine, Keno, very demanding man, frightening, some would say. But he would come in, and I would always try and second guess and play something that I thought he would like. And he never would. he never would like anything that I played. And his response normally, he'd come in, he'd order a drink, and he'd stay. I might play 2 or 3 songs before eventually he'd come over, and I'd think, Jesus Christ, here we go. And then I'd say, what about this one, Keno? This is a good one, isn't it? It's brilliant. And he'd say, it's not Black Sabbath, is it? It's not Black Sabbath. And I'd say, no, Keno, it's a Britpop night. I can't really play Black Sabbath. And he'd just shake his head and walk away. And that would happen every Friday for the whole time that I DJ'd there. What about this one, Keno? Surely this is a classic. It's not Black Sabbath, is it? And it never was. If I was still DJing, I'm far too old for that game now, I'd have just played Black Sabbath now. I don't know what was my problem. Yeah, so I don't know how long this one's gone. I did promise this one would be shorter. I think it has been. But all we have left to do then is have a look what next week's is going to be. So last week, when I picked this, I held it up to the camera and the camera couldn't make it out. I don't know what to do about that really, so I'm going to do the same thing again because perhaps this time it'll be different. As I said last week, this is an app that I use that just picks stuff at random. It's called Tiny Decisions. You enter it into the app and it picks one at random for you. So let's see what we are going to be talking about next time. So I don't know if you can see that, but it is... Oh, predictably, we have a Bob Marley album, Early Doors. As I said last week, my dad owns seven of the 47 records are Bob Marley records. And we have Bob Marley Exodus. So, and I'm aware of it, I know the song, but I don't know what is on the rest of the album. I look forward to listening to it. And that will be next week's episode, Exodus by Bob Marley. So there we have it. JJ Cale Troubadour, recommended. Thank you very much.